So this is Congress.gov, and when you go to Congress.gov, you can actually type in the name of a bill. But notice that when you go to Congress.gov, it's already has the current Congress. So like if you tried to search for the Impoundment Control Act of 1974, it will actually bring up legislation that has been introduced in the current Congress. So apparently Andrew Clyde introduced a bill to repeal the Impoundment Control Act. If you check out the blog I just wrote about the fancy comma teach-in, you can read more about the Impoundment Control Act and why Congress passed it. So let's see. So we can search for, in the current Congress, we can search for the name of a bill like H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And there it is. So when you click on this bill, it tells you it's a law. It has a little tracker, tells you that it became a law. It was signed into law by Donald Trump. It tells you who the sponsor was, Representative Jody Arrington. You can look at the summary. Usually there's like a short summary. And then you can also read the text of the bill here. You go to click on text. Wow. Usually what I do for if I'm trying to find something, I do Control F. So let's see, they took away SNAP benefits in this bill. So you can get to the SNAP part. So, and this is really fun to read through this kind of stuff. A lot of people repost stuff about Congress news without seeing what is happening in the actual bills. But as someone who's had to analyze different bills, I think it's cool to look through this. So they modified, so for example, we can see they modified, so SNAP is the food assistance that got basically, there was a rescission, which means Congress actually took back the funding that they had allocated. So here you go. This way you can search the full text. You can also look at it as a PDF. Let me share my proper screen. Well, crud. Okay. Here we go. This should fix it. So we have, let's go back to the rescissions. So we've got, you can do Control F, search for rescission. Oops, wrong window. Rescission. So, oh, it's not searching. It's not allowing me to search. So you might have to save this to your computer. But you can read the full text of the law here. Wow. How many? 331 pages. Dairy policy. Wow. Isn't this so interesting? Alien SNAP eligibility. Dairy policy. I think I already said that. Poultry insurance pilot program. Miscellaneous. Interesting. So yeah. So if you were really wanted to know exactly what's going on in the Big Beautiful Bill, you could just look through this whole thing. You could also, although I don't recommend it, download this and like put it in ChatGPT and summarize it. I think that might work for some stuff, but I feel like you're better off just like searching for keywords because ChatGPT makes up stuff. Okay, so that's one way to use this, is to see what the actual law is. And then you can look at the actual actions as well. Okay, so then you can look at the different actions. So on July 4th, Donald Trump signed this into law and it became this law. Oh, well, it says signed by president here. You can actually see all of the actions from the time it was introduced. If you scroll to the very bottom. So this was first introduced in the House because that's the first action here on May 20th. And then after the, usually often after a bill is introduced in the House, it goes to a committee and the committee looks at it. I'm not an expert on congressional procedure, but in general, what is HRes 436? This is HR 1. This looks very procedural. Okay, so whatever that was, then it went to the committee on the budget. It made it out of the budget committee. It's hard to tell. This is so incredibly procedural. You could probably Google like a timeline. But anyway, all the information is listed here. We can see that it went to the Senate, and then there was all this discussion in the Senate. It was considered on 6:30. A lot of stuff happening. Wow. I don't remember all of this being on here. Let's say there's a bill being considered and you want to know what's happening with it. Congress.gov is the best place to go to see what's happening. Finally, on July 1st, it passed the Senate, and then they sent it back to the House, I think because they changed it. So then they sent it to the House, and Jody Arrington, who introduced it, agreed to the amendments in the Senate. Then they finally voted on it at 2:31 p.m. on July 3rd. So then it passed, and then it got signed by the president. So that's how you use the actions. So you can also look at the amendments. There's a lot of amendments. You can look at amendments that are agreed to, not agreed to, with amendments proposed, amendments just submitted. These are the committees that it went to. I think we said it went to the Budget Committee. Yeah, House Budget Committee. And then there's also related bills, and I've never clicked on that before. But wow, interesting. So yeah, so that's how you track a specific bill that's happening in the current Congress. But if you want to search, so remember I said when you go to Congress.gov, it's in the current, it says current Congress. If you change it to all Congresses, let's say you want to look for the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. So here I want to find the original Impoundment Control Act. So I probably want to sort by date of introduction, oldest to newest. So I think it's just serving up things that have these different words in them. These are before 1974. So let's see if I can find this without using any additional keywords or any different options. This just about crashed my browser. I feel like we need to uncheck all, then check, let's use the more options. Congress years, historical. Why can't you search by year? Let's see. Impoundment Control Act, search only titles. Search historical, let's see. No results. Wow, so it should work for 1973 to 2024. Legislative actions. Laws. Because it was passed and signed into law. HR 4. So let's go to Congress.gov again. Impoundment Control Act of 1974. So you can actually also go to, wait, let's try this again. Legislation. Impoundment Control Act in all available Congresses. Finally, so we have to go to legislation to search for this. And it actually comes up when someone tried to repeal it. But so if you look at the tracker and it says introduced, but it doesn't have anything after it, then that means it never went anywhere. So let's click on the Impoundment Control Act, see what it says here, because this is an older law, but actually it still has a lot of, has the summary. The bill summaries are written by the Congressional Research Service. Wow. So this bill actually established a standing committee of the Senate to be known as the Committee of the Budget, and it also created the House Budget Committee, and it outlines the composition and duties of the committees. Interesting. And it creates a timetable for the congressional budget process. Pretty cool. So this is the text of the bill, and it's just a PDF because this was in 1974. So you can read that if you are interested. This law establishes the House and Senate Budget Committees. Then the actions, it started in 1973 in the House. Then it went to the Rules Committee, made it out of the Rules Committee, went to the Senate. Then I guess they hugged it out and ironed out the differences and made it the same in both chambers and presented it to the president. It doesn't say who the president was in 1974. Gerald Ford signed this into law after Richard Nixon resigned. These are the titles, tells you what committees, in addition to the actions. Okay, so now if you want to search for, if you want to search for a particular bill, you can go to legislation. So we can do another one. Americans with Disabilities Act. The Americans Disabilities Act of 1990. So let's see. You can sort by most to least co-sponsors. You can also sort by law number, title, ascending or descending number, like this number. You can sort by date of introduction, latest action. I don't know if I'll be able to find this specific Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. It's pretty hard to find some of these bills. Maybe if we sort by, we can scroll here and look at status of legislation and say became law. I mean, this is closer to what we're looking for, but I still don't see the actual law here. Yes, here it is. Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 prohibits discrimination by a covered entity, any employer, employment agency, labor organization, or joint labor management committee against any qualified individual with a disability in the job application procedures, hiring or discharge, compensation, advancement, training, and other terms, conditions, and privileges of employment. Oh, this is interesting. You could totally nerd out on disability policy here. And then you could also look up the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So let's do that since we now have learned how to do this. So go to legislation. Maybe we can put this in quotes to see if it will just come up. So these are all recognizing the anniversary. So let's see. Became law. Wow. Surprising to me that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 Commemorative Coin Act is more relevant to my search than the actual Civil Rights Act of 1964. And that's all there is in this title, but it is what it is. So let's click on this and see what this says. So unfortunately, because this was passed in 1964, there's no text summary because it's way before we had online systems. I wonder why though. They could easily create a little summary of the Civil Rights Act. So here's the actual act. Wow, this font is so ancient looking. It's so interesting to see these words on the page given the Trump administration's defunding of DEI grants. It's like mind-boggling. But the Trump administration is not Congress, so who knows? Congress might pass a law about codifying in federal law the DEI. You never know. Non-discrimination. This would be a really fun bill to just read and see what all they put in here. So this would be Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. I don't know if there's a Title IX of the Civil Rights Act. I'm not a legal scholar, so. So Title IX is actually part of the Education Amendments of 1972 that prohibits sex-based discrimination. So the Title IX is not in here. But anyway, you probably can't read a lot of stuff here but for this older bill, but you can see the different actions. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was actually introduced in June 20th, 1963, and it took a full year, almost a full year to pass, and it doesn't say what committees it went to. So you can also search for different members of Congress. So the examples are Don Bacon. So let's search for Don Bacon. Tells you who Don Bacon is, tells you where his office is, how to call him his office. It tells you his district. You can see all the different bills he's introduced. Let's see if there's any bills that have been, oh, he introduced a bill that was vetoed. Interesting. Providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code. So this was actually a joint resolution. And it passed the House and Senate, and then it was vetoed by President Biden, and then they tried to pass it again, but it failed to pass. Interesting. Yeah, so it was presented to the president on April 5th, 2023, and then vetoed the next day. So that's interesting. I wonder what this bill does. The rule specifies which bodies of water fall under the scope of the Clean Water Act and are thereby under federal jurisdiction and protected. So they tried to revise the definition of waters of the United States for whatever reason. So you can also see different stuff on Congress.gov, such as you can find the cost estimates for different things. You can also search for committees and search for the budget committee things. I think this returns everything in the current Congress that has gone to the budget committee. So you have to be more specific and use the search functions on the left here. There's all kinds of, you can also search for reports. So there's a congressional report on the Impoundment Control Act from the Congressional Research Service. So let's try to find that. So we search for Impoundment Control Act, then we go to CRS product type. CRS stands for the Congressional Research Service. So let's click on reports. So we can find this report, Impoundment Control Act, and you can read the whole report here. You can also download it as a PDF And you can download it as a PDF, and you can also listen to it, see what kind of robot voice this has. I would say that it's a relatively chill robot voice. All right, well, so you can read through that whole thing. So I would say there are a lot of features to Congress.gov. We tried some of the advanced searches and they didn't exactly come up the way we wanted, but it looks like you can search for different subjects, you can search for different actions. You can actually do whatever this is, command line thing, query builder. Wow, you could do a very complicated search if you really needed to. Can search for words and phrases. You can search for China trade policy. You can go back and there's all this other stuff here. You can see what happened in Congress yesterday. Oops, I don't really know what's going on with this. You can also sign up for like alerts and stuff. But yeah, so if you're interested in doing any type of congressional analysis, or you want to know what's happening with different bills, or you want to know what Congress is considering, this is the main website that you want to go to. I would go to this website. I would use it in conjunction with looking at news sources. This is the main source for like what Congress is actually doing. So I hope you enjoyed this explainer, and thanks for following along.